Yes, we're live.
We're live now?
Yep, we're live.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to KCJC Sport Talk. Today is Thursday, December the 17th. I am your host, Kenwood Connell, and my co-host is...
John J.C. Campbell, live and direct from Kingston, Jamaica.
Our special guest tonight will be Dr. Kevin Jones. For tonight's show, we will be talking about performance and image-enhancing drugs. But first, we'll look at what's trending in sports. John, what do you have for us this evening?
Well, I really want to start with the fact that LeBron James has been selected as Athlete of the Year. And this is by Time Magazine. And also by Sports Illustrated Magazine. He's the sports person of the year. And I think, deservedly so. And I think he was selected most, not so much for his prowess on the court, but I think largely in part because of his humanitarian efforts. His stance in support of the marginalized folks, and especially when it comes down to persons, the voting rights of people, So, yeah, I have to applaud him for that. Yeah, what's on your side? What's good on your side?
Yeah, well, I got to add to LeBron. He is so deserving of such an award, man. This guy has been doing so much for the sport and also as a philanthropist and, for the Black Lives Matter movement, which is very important in these times, So
Indeed.
I really want to lift my hat off to him, man, for that accomplishment. Yeah, but I'm going to cross over and talk about the 15 stages of the Tyson Mill Classic meet, which was staged at Calabar High School.
Oh, yes.
The performance of our Ruseas athletes, man. Boys class 200 meter. Jordani Woodley tied for second place with a time of 22.0 seconds. The girls class 400 meters. Wanika Brissett third with a time of 1 minute 0.76 seconds. And L. Williams was fourth with a time of 1 minute 2.04 seconds. Then we have good performance also in the girls class 800 meter. Onika Brissett first with a time of 2 minutes 26.98 seconds.
Good going.
Girls shot put, class 1. Leonie Samuel second with a throw of 10.96 meters.
Absolutely.
And Keon Fenton was fourth with a throw of 10.85 meters. We move on to class 1 discus throw. Keon Fenton was second with a throw of 41.13 meters, and Leonie Samuel was fifth, 32.06 meters.
Oh,
yo, that's
good.
Impressive, man.
That's good. And this is just what they call a development meet. So this is in preparation for hopefully the start of the track season come next year. So Russie looking kind of good from now, eh?
Oh man, I'm excited. I gotta go get my shirt together. I'm almost ready to take a trip already. So
let me ask you this though. Did you see the Leon Bailey goal in the Bundesliga competition? Did you see that?
Yes, sir. And we have to talk about the brilliance of this guy, man. Talk about his skills and his ability to score goal. This guy is a true number 9. What is impressive about this guy is his versatility, his speed, ability to play on the right, to play on the left, to play central. And I'm wondering if most people are just watching Leon Bailey as entertainment. Are they watching his game? His game. Just look at the formula. How this guy take his kicks, whenever he's taking a shot, the non-kicking foot is always positioned right next to the ball with his body over the ball. Therefore, the trajectory of his shots are usually very low, which is very difficult for a goalkeeper to stop the shot. And whenever, like the goal that you're talking about, which was from a corner kick, usually when they take a short corner kick, the result is not as impressive as what we saw. This guy pretty much lifted the ball over all the defenders right into the goal, into the goal. He proved to us again that when it counts, he can carry the team on his back. So Brian Leverkusen is pretty much depending on him so much right now. Remember last year, I don't know if you recall last year when they played against Bayern Munich, he basically won the game all by himself. And now again, against Hoffenheim, he basically won the game by himself. Because he scored 2 goals last year and came back to score 2 goals, which put them atop of the Bundesliga, by the way.
Well, that from my point of view, I think he's just an amazing asset to the Jamaica national football team. And once he has the right players around him in support, I think he can do wonders. Speaking of the Jamaica team, the buzz is that many people feel that we have the team to make it to the World Cup again. I think that we have a pool of talent now that if we play the cards right, we should really be able to get back into the World Cup. After what? How many years? Where was 98 that was last year, no?
Well, John, the thing about it is I'm looking at Leon Bailey's fundamentals, the fundamentals of his game. And I would hope that a lot of the Jamaican players would copy the fundamentals of his game. He have a supporting cast with Darby and Patrick Schick, right? A real good supporting cast. But, Jamaica can do about the same thing if they pay attention to fundamentals in the game. There's a lot to learn from Leon Bailey, a whole lot to learn from him.
But it's not just whilst learning and seeing and learning is also important. I think the fundamental here is the right training. It has to do with training or what you've been trained to do. Because let's face it, a lot of it is, I don't want to say instinct, totally instinct, but a lot of it is, you don't just think through everything that you do. Some things just happen spontaneously. And that has to do with the training that you'd have received prior to your game. So I think, whilst we can look at him and learn, I think we also need to put in the correct training of youth from their at the fledgling state right up. So it becomes automatic.
Absolutely.
Automatic in terms of how you respond on a football field. In any sport for that matter, but certainly in football. But it looks good. I am kind of pleased with what's happening there. It looks good, football, the football looks
I was thinking about the same thing, absolutely. This shows that his training at a youth level was very, very much adapted and springboard into his professional game. If you look at his footwork, and like I said, watch his footwork. When he passes the ball, watch his positioning of that foot the non-kicking foot when he take the shot. The speed. All of these things. If we can get this into our system from an early age, think about what we can produce. Because several experts came to Jamaica from Germany, Japan, Brazil, and say that we have the natural ability. It's just a matter of putting everything together and springboard into the.
That's a good point. That's an excellent point, and this goes across all sport. Talking from personal experiences and the experiences that I would have gleaned from other folks, in that we have a wide and vast pool of talent right across the board. What we lack, it seems, is just resources to develop this talent as best as it can be. And look at it, for instance. We take football again. So we have let's say a George's team or a KC team or a Rusty team, a nice pool of talented youth. They play well at the national level. They go to the regional level as a national team and they can beat a Trinidad, they can beat a Guyana, they can beat a St. Lucia. But as soon as they move beyond the region, that's now playing Canada or US or in this case Japan or any other of the European sides, we fall, steps below. Is that they beat us at the same age group. What is the fundamental difference? What happens at that level? And it has to do, I personally believe, with training. Of course, resources, yes, but the training that we receive, interestingly. But I hope one day we'll get there.
one of the things I would just want to add is one of the things that could resources is important, but then the most vital resource is the human resource, and we already have that.
Yeah, but if it's not developed, then it ain't going nowhere.
One of the things that we could do, we have the fundamentals, is that we have to start approaching the game a different way. We got to have a springboard from the high school into the professional league, whereby we look at it from a career point of view. A lot of these guys are going into playing for some hotels or going into club, and then it's not a career, it's just a job. When you're doing a job, the person who actually owns the job is the employer, whoever that employer is. We want it to be a career. These guys already have a passion for the sport. So it's just a matter of continuing that passion over to the professional level. They're losing, there's a gap. There's not a springboard that is set to springboard over into the professional level. And that's the problem. So we have to look at it from a career point of view. These guys are already putting enough interest in training and enough effort in training, but the effort is almost wasted because then they go on to where they're supposed to go to the pro level, and there is no springboard into the pro level really. But so far so good with that. Let's focus on another.
So what you're talking about? Hold on, don't go yet, because what you're talking about is really professionalism in sport and sport and development.
So that's what our program is about. Our program is about sports education and educating people about sport. It's not so much about football and cricket. It's about sports education. But anyway, let's see what else is trending in sports. So, Royal Junior Sprint Double Champion Brianna Williams is set for early season opener. That is going to be this weekend in the Bahamas. And she's slated to do the 300 meters and the 150 meters. I think that her coach is doing a fantastic job, considering that this is early season. You really just want to test her speed and endurance. So you don't want to go into the shorter sprint so she get hurt. So I think that the coach, I just love what Arthur Bolin is doing with this girl. Excellent coaching, man. I can't tell you how much I'm impressed with what he's doing. I'm looking for some huge result from Brianna for the upcoming 2020 to 2021 season. I can't wait.
Right. Well, let's see how that goes. I think what is now time to introduce our guest. Time is running. Let me admit our guest to the room. Just to let you know that we're going to be looking at doping in sport. Doping in sport, performance-enhancing drugs. Just making sure that Dr. Jones is with us. Dr. Jones, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Welcome. So by way of introduction, we're not seeing his face yet.
Oh, you want to see my face?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right, that's me.
All right. So,
man, where were you hiding that handsome face, man? Come on.
All right. So you're a chava. You're a man's man. You're a chava.
Doctor, welcome, Doc. Great to have you.
Thanks, boss.
So, just by way of introduction, we're so pleased to welcome to our platform Dr. Kevin Jones. Dr. Jones is actually the consultant orthopedic surgeon at the Mandeville Hospital. And let me just stop to say that at that hospital, he actually established a sports medicine clinic for the treatment and rehabilitation of sports injuries. He's also an associate lecturer in the Department of Surgery and Anesthetics and Intensive Care at the University of the West Indies. I think that his hardest job yet, though, is being president of the Jamaica Association of Sports Medicine. He's my president. And but this evening, he has put away his scalpel and he now wears the hat of chairman of the Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. Dr. Jones, welcome to Brosis. You're on the platform of the brothers and sisters of Ruseas High School. This is a program that we do every Thursday when we speak about sport and things sport. We're so happy to have you. The big topic for today, and certainly it's going to be within your playing field, has to do with doping in sport. And I wanted to share with us basically at the very outset just the role and function of briefly, the role and function of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. What is it there for? How is it funded?
All right, well, thanks for having me. Always good to be among the right Russians, not the ones who are putting the rules. All right, well, that's a broad area. Well, JADCO, as you know, I'm trying to remember the year that it was formed, but the basic role of it is to, one, educate and inform, and it's not just towards athletes, but remember when we talk about sport, it involves the athletes, the coaches, managers, agents, etc. So everything when we speak about is not just towards the athletes, but to all personnel that are involved in getting athletes ready, so the medical personnel, etc. So it is pretty much set up to inform the local sporting fraternity about issues related to doping in sport, as is comes under the jurisdiction of WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, right. Which is the main umbrella that we fall under. And to, apart from educating and informing, to enforce the relative rules and regulations associated with the whole issue of doping in sport. And then as far as where I come in is the body is authorized to grant permission to individuals to use prohibitive medications for justifiable medical reasons in sports. So drugs that are banned, it is also in place there to provide a means to facilitate the use of those drugs in sport, provide that they fit the relevant criteria. So that's kind of like a broad thing.
All right, I'm going to come back to that, the TUE aspect of things. But in terms of funding, how is the commission funded really? It's governmental?
Yeah, it's government. It's a governmental agency, which is why when there were problems and issues that went down, as you know, a bunch of things that happened a couple of years ago. We had changing of executive directors a couple of times, and it's all in the media and so forth, because it is government funded. And the persons that actually work with the association, so you have the technical director, and you have various persons under there. They're actually paid government employees.
Right.
Those of us who work on the Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee, we don't get salaried, but we do get a stipend for every case that we mitigate on. So when there's an issue that comes up and we're asked to advise or to make a ruling on, we do get a small stipend for that.
Yeah, okay, great. But before you came on, Ken and I were talking about the issue of the popular drugs. You know, I mean, the use of drugs is nothing new. I mean, I recall that even during the bodybuilders themselves it was rampant during the bodybuilding eras, you know, where the big guys used to use strange substances to enhance their their performance.
You're still using them, and they're not strange. They just have advanced in the technology.
Because I'm going to ask you now. I'm going to ask you, what are the choice drugs? And let us focus on, let's say, the athletes now, track and field, any sport for that matter.
Well,
generally the choice in terms of performance, you know.
All right. So as the key word you have used there is performance, you know. So the choice of drug would vary on the sport and what you're trying to achieve. If you're involved in sports and the different attributes that you need to be successful at the sport, then that would be your choice of drug. So like for the short explosive sports, most of the agents that are popular are anabolic agents, which includes anabolic steroids and drugs that work like that, and stimulants, which increase your metabolic rates and allow you to respond more quickly, allows your body to respond more quickly. Sorry, in the event. So those are the two broad groups that are more popular in sports that require explosiveness, strength, and speed. So bodybuilders use a lot of anabolic agents. They also like to use diuretics, not so much so for them being masking agents, but to reduce their water weight, because
right.
Support at time.
Yes.
In other sports, there are different things that athletes might want to use. So it's sports that require a certain amount of calm. So sports like archery, shooting, where you want to be controlled, you want to be nervous and too edgy. There are certain sedatives and certain drugs that control and slow your heart rate, which are banned in those sports. Alcohol is not banned in athletics because it would depress your performance, but in sports where you're required to have that calm, easy personality, alcohol is prohibited, you know.
I was about to ask you, so we can't drink a one rum before I go shoot?
No, you can't. For shooting, for motor car racing, archery, and other stuff that requires a certain level of carb, drugs that do that are banned, that can calm you down, are banned in those sports. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve. So it's really tailored to the sport that you're involved in.
So Doc, so I want to backtrack a little bit, because I didn't want to interrupt. So you're saying that the goals of JADCO then is to prevent unfair competition and use of PED, right?
Yes, that's one of the goals.
Okay, so would you agree then that I'm going to broaden it a little bit and say performance and image enhancing drugs? Would you agree then that performance enhancing substances or drugs is one of the most serious issues that is facing sports today?
Yes.
Apart from COVID.
Yes, there still are. You know, because it's just an evolution of drugs that you see, because you realize that people are still testing positive for different things. But yes, it still is, and it's an ongoing battle.
And the internet is also adding to this, because you can freely order online some of these drugs because they're sold over the counter. As also they have masking agent nowadays, so which also broadens the use of these drugs, right?
Yes. So masking agents, the classic masking agents are agents that help you to get rid of the drug from the body. And those include, your diuretics are probably the most commonly used masking agents. This is why they are banned. And also why, if you have a low level concentration of a certain drug in your body that is below a legal limit, if you're found to have a diuretic on board or any other masking agent, there's some that helps the kidneys to excrete certain drugs, a drug by the name of promethazine. But anything that helps to increase the rate of excretion of a drug, if you are found to have that drug along with a low level of the drug, then you will think there you will be given it's like you are tested positive for the drug. So a masking agent makes all other agents, all other drugs, whatever the level, register or report as a positive test.
Can you briefly outline the current epidemiology of performance-enhancing drug use in the pediatric population? Because here in America, while they have seen a somewhat decline or leveling off of the use of performance-enhancing drugs, they have seen a rapid increase in performance-enhancing drugs in children and adolescents, especially among male athletes.
Yeah, well, that has been an ongoing battle for a while. One of the classic performance-enhancing drugs that they've used in the States, especially in power sports, have been steroids. There's not so much the steroids in their pure form now, but drugs that can enhance the production of the steroids. So they might be going to drugs that might stimulate the individual's steroid producing glands. But so like in men, the testes and so forth, to produce more testosterone. And that's why certain drugs that are not anabolic in nature, but that stimulate the increased production of testosterone are banned. Apart from that, I mean, and it's not just in sport, because you recognize that even in academics, they're using stimulants that helps improve memory and so forth, to improve their ability to study and retain information and so forth. And there are other drugs that help to like improve your heart function and your oxygen manipulation. Drugs like the one that Sharapova tested positive was meldonium, that they used, that the Russian, that actually came out of Russian soldiers, which was being used by Russian soldiers who were fighting at high altitudes. And that's why that only became banned like about 3 or 4 years ago. And the reason why it became banned was because it was being monitored. And then what happened was that they found that there was an increased level of use of that drug when in competition by athletes, and that is why they banned it, So anabolic agents, and like I said, remember, anabolic agents does not just include steroids. Remember, Mark McGuire, home run derby, he was with Sammy Sosa, were battling out the home run record in the MLB way back when. He used a steroid precursors. I think was one of the androstenedione or one of those steroid precursors, which is an anabolic agent as well, but in the pure sense, not a steroid. So anabolic agents and stimulants, again, are the two most common ones being used. And then the stimulants are not just being used in athletics, but in academics as well, in academia, to help increase study, memory, and retain, and the ability to study and read for longer periods of time and retain information. So, and the push behind that in the States is because everybody buys into the mindset. Well, the facts are that college tuitions are high and major league sports pay a lot of money. So there is a push to one, early specialization in kids, and to do whatever is necessary to enhance their performance so that hopefully they can get a piece of the pie, whether it be the college scholarship pie or the professional athlete pay scale at the end of college.
The drug that you mentioned that the Russians were using, is that injected into the bloodstream or what?
No, it was oral. So oral. Okay. Oral medication, yeah. Because it was generally distributed to the soldiers. So it was mass distributed to the soldiers that were fighting at altitude. I think it was in the Himalayas or where somewhere in the Asian mountain range. And it was found to improve their performance. And then it wasn't banned in sport until I remember, I think it's 4 years ago. I could have checked the date and told you. But Maria Sharapova, who was former #1 world tennis player, she got caught with it, you know. Because you see, what happens at remember that the prohibitive list is a dynamic list. It's actually each year things are added or taken off, and dosage levels are modified, and the change takes place in October for the year before. So like the 2021 prohibitive list is now available. It won't be published until January 1st, but it has been now available, and they usually ask for assistance from member nations to answer certain questions, submit certain information related to certain things. And that drug, it was announced that it would be banned, you know. And so as of December 31st, as of January 1st in the year, it became banned. So what they actually had was that if you were tested in January, if your level was consistent with you taking the drug in December, then you are not found to be positive. So in other words, you could have taken the drug up to December 31st, and then after that, you'd have had a tail off of the drug in your system. And they had done studies to measure that tail off, so that they knew that for the first 3 months or so for the year that the drug was banned, that individuals would test positive or would have certain levels in their body because it wasn't banned the year before. However, those levels had to be consistent with the normal reduction in the body of that, reduction in concentration in the body of that drug.
Okay, I'm trying to figure out, is my co-host still on? I'm not quite sure.
I don't know. I don't see.
Okay, well, we'll continue. What type of negative impact do you think COVID-19 will have on performance-enhancing drugs?
And negative impact on, that's the right question. Negative impact on performance-enhancing drugs would suggest a good thing, because they will.
What kind of impact? Let's make it general. What kind of impact do you think it will have on
drugs in sport?
Yes.
I'd have to say probably a mixed impact, because with all this downtime, people have a lot of things have come up, you know, and as people have been experimenting with stuff and trying out different things under closed doors, because a lot of athletes would not be because they're not having any meets. A lot of athletes would not have been routinely tested, and for guys who do this, they know what they call the half-lives of the drugs in the system and so forth. So they know how to, that when the drug will tail off and so forth. So if you're, for the high-level athletes who are tested on a regular basis and have random testing and so forth, it wouldn't make that much of a difference because they're still being tested out of season. But for the athletes on the lower tier who probably only get tested when they compete at certain meets, because they're not in the pool of athletes being tested by the local anti-doping body, those athletes might see it as a window to utilize such things for a period of time while they know that they are not going to be tested. That's probably the main thing. I can't say any other in terms of it reducing. I think the only thing it might do is allow people to experiment more and look into different things, look into different ways in which they can probably bend or play with the rules.
Yeah. What about athletes? What do you think about athletes who might have fallen behind in their training as a result of the COVID epidemic? How do you think that would increase usage of PED?
Yeah, that's a high possibility, because everybody who thinks they're behind, everybody's going to be looking for some kind of an edge to go forward, realizing, the Olympics were put off from this year to next year now, as opposed to being played, but I know real competition still get sharp. So you're more than likely you'll have athletes who are trying to find ways, chemical ways to enhance their preparation for competition in the absence of actually being able to train adequately and to compete adequately before the major competitions in play. So that's a high possibility that that could happen.
Okay, so could you list for the listening audience some of the most common drugs that are being used? I know some people might be surprised that caffeine in some of those sports sports drinks that they're consuming also is considered performance enhancing drugs. So could you list us some of the most common, apart from anabolic steroids? Can you list us some of those that are most commonly used?
All right, so there are drugs that are used that are performance enhanced, which are not banned. Caffeine is one of them that used to be banned, but it isn't anymore, you know? So, and in fact, the IAAF, or which is known World Athletics site, if you go to the medical site, they actually list certain performance enhancing drugs which have been proven to show some benefit, which are not prohibited in sport. And those drugs, well, I can a few of them off the bat are creatine, beta-alanine, and caffeine. Those are 3 drugs that are quote unquote still legal in sports that have been shown to provide some benefit. So you'd have to look at those as being the most commonly used performance enhancing drugs, but are not banned and they're not currently banned and have been proven to show some benefit. Apart from that, again, go back again to anabolic agents in whatever form, you know, whether you're blocking estrogens, whether you are stimulating testosterone production, or whether you're providing precursors to steroid production, or you're providing drugs which stimulate the same receptors like steroids. You know, so drugs, anabolic agents are always very common. And then there are the stimulants. A lot of the stimulants that are found in over-the-counter medications are prohibited at certain levels. You know, if the levels are below things like pseudoephedrine, adrenaline, and phenylephrine are drugs that are prohibited above a certain level, but you can take a certain amount that is legal, you know. So as a result of that, those drugs, and as a result of that, those drugs are on what they call WADA's monitoring program. So they monitor their use throughout the years, and if there's a repetitive spike throughout competition, then it's possible that will probably enter into the banned list at some point in time. But those are the, and then drugs that help, that assist in oxygen carrying capacity, you know, for the distance run and the endurance sports. Erythropoietin, which helps increase your blood count, is one of the more commonly used drugs, or drugs that work similar and help to improve your blood count. Are drugs that are commonly used. I think one distance runner from Kenya within this year, I think, recently got banned for use of EPO.
Okay, some of these, like the first drug name was creatine. Creatine,
yeah.
Creatine, isn't it being produced by the body naturally though?
Yes, there's a certain amount that is produced by the body and muscles, and it is. Yeah, that is why it's technically, well, remember, testosterone is produced by the body also.
Right.
Right. So creatine is produced by the body naturally, but external creatine is given at the right time, especially during power workouts and so forth, can enhance your ability to put on and develop lean body muscle mass.
Okay, I was very excited when I heard that you was coming on to discuss this topic, because I'm affiliated to American Sports Education Program, and you know, we have what we call recurrent training, and periodically we have to go and study a certain area. And one of the areas that was selected most recently is this area. So of course, I was excited when he was coming on to see if there is anything else that I could learn from the program. But there is one area that I want you to address first, because I know we have a lot of female and male who are trying to shape their bodies. Can you tell us the benefits that can be had from performance enhancing drugs when it comes to body image?
But okay, so you're talking really fat distribution and muscle tone and so forth.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, again, you know, it goes back to the same basically. Any drug that helps you to build muscle mass, you know, lean muscle mass, helps with that. And it's not just anabolic steroids. You have anabolic agents that were initially drugs used for asthma, like clenbuterol and so forth. And drugs like that, which are actually used in beef production in a lot of countries. And so as a result of that, people can, by consuming beef from certain areas, people can actually develop increased levels of these drugs in their body, which can enhance their ability to develop and produce lean muscle mass. So, so any form of anabolic agent that improves a lean muscle mass, and then secondary, any drug that helps you to reduce the amount of water content, which can be dangerous. So diuretics and so forth, those also help you to improve your appearance in terms of tone.
Okay, I've been listening to a lot of stuff that's going on in Jamaica regarding, especially with track and field. And a few years ago, if you recall, we had a number of athletes that were accused of using performance enhancing drugs. And the most common argument that was used as defense was contamination. Can you explain to the audience why is it so common that contamination is used as the reason for unknowingly taking that drug?
All right, well, here's the deal. For a lot of those athletes, I mean, a while back, several of our athletes from a national championship tested positive for hydrochlorothiazide, which isn't performance enhancing, but it's a diuretic and it acts as a masking agent. Now, supplements which are not banned, neither are they regulated, usually say that they are going to provide you with improve your ability to train and to ultimately improve your performance. Now, the issue with supplements is that when the IAAF, now World Athletic, had done studies on supplements, what they found was several things. That one in 4 supplements does not have an accurate label on it. So the label either one includes, so it will tell you what is in it, but it does not include substances that are not in it. You know, it also may misrepresent the concentrations of various substances that are there. So as a result, athletes would take supplements which do not have any banned substances listed on it. However, there are banned substances in it. And this caused 2 of our major athletes a couple of years ago when they both tested positive for a stimulant, auxilafrine, which is banned because it was present in a supplement that they were both taking, you know, and but it wasn't listed on it. And that is a problem with taking supplements. And that is why they said 1 in 4, so if 25% of supplements that they studied were found to have an ingredient in there that was not on the label. That is why athletes can easily go through and say that it's they didn't take it knowingly because 1, it wasn't on, it's just not listed on any of the substances that they were taking, and then 2, was found to be a contaminant or an unknown additive to the substance that they were taking, and that's the main reason behind that.
Yeah, just like here in the USA, because I deal with a lot of junior athletes, and most parents are not aware of the fact that there is not much oversight by the FDA, which is the Drug Administration. And so they're unaware of the fact that some of these over-the-counter supplements that they're taking somewhat has some of these banned substances in them.
Yes.
So, okay. Another question I have for you. It is also during my research, I found out that during the onset of endogenous hormone secretion during puberty, that as long as the athlete eat properly and go through the proper training regime, there is not a significant difference in gain compared to the natural training and the use of banned substances. Can you elaborate on that for us?
Sure. All right. So all our anabolic hormones that we produce naturally are highest during puberty. Right? And that is why return from injury and ability to repeat performance and so forth is so easy in childhood and in puberty in particular, where you'll find a lot of persons who don't necessarily train very hard do so well. And that is why in certain sports in the States with certain people in certain positions, why they fall off once they reach past 35. There's almost like a cliff that a lot of these athletes fall off on that they're not aware of. You know, they can't throw the ball as well, talking about certain quarterbacks and so forth, not as accurate, and their ability to recover from games is not as well. So yes, in puberty, if you look at the graphs for hormone production for all of these endogenous or naturally produced anabolic agents, they're highest during the puberty years. So if you train appropriately, there's no need to take something from outside. And then the problem with taking something from outside as well is that it may depress your production of the normal endogenous hormones that you're producing. And as a result of that, it have a reverse effect. It results in underdevelopment of those glands, so that when you go later on in life, you do not produce the same level of those hormones that you would as if you went through puberty without taking anything else from outside. So
then these children and adolescent, especially, they need to kind of understand that as long as they stick to a training which is specific to the sport that they're doing, and they eat well, they fuel their body properly, then there is not much to gain from using performance enhancing drugs in, right?
Yes, that is true.
Okay, another question that I have, there are some studies out there that state that there's some concern that initial use of over-the-counter PED can lead to a wider use such as anabolic steroid, and could also lead to an increase in alcohol consumption. Do you think, is there any relationship in your mind? Do you think is there any relationship between them?
Yeah, all right. Well, there are two factors here to consider. Because you know, they talk about with drugs, they talk about physical dependence and mental or psychological dependence. So if you take, and then the body tends to develop tolerance after a certain level when you take anything for a certain period of time. So if you take performance enhancing drugs and you reach a certain level, or you're able to perform at a certain level, and then you start to fall off, the natural inclination is for you to try and take more, you know? And then once you develop this pattern, the psychological pattern of dependency on taking substances for your own, for performance, physically and otherwise, then it's an easy transition for you to try other things, alcohol to lighten the mood, marijuana to calm you down, other heavy stimulants like methamphetamine or cocaine and so forth. So it's just like a transition, you know, where you develop tolerance to what you were taking, and in order to receive that same level of performance satisfaction or mental satisfaction, you either seek something else or you try to increase the dosage of what you're taking. So that's generally how it works with drug addiction and the use of drugs and so forth.
Okay, so you actually mentioned earlier on that it's accurate to say that most commonly used PED among a young adult is sold over the counter. All right, so for children and adolescents, well, can you give them, what kind of advice can you give them to ensure that, because these supplements are sold over the counter, what are parents supposed to look for, and what can they do to prevent their kids from, consuming these substances and possibly becoming addicted to, or suffer withdrawal if they stop using these supplements?
All right, yes, I was going to say something earlier. All right, so prevent is a strong word. So we like to use reduce the risk of, because we don't like to speak in absolution when we deal with issues in medicine and stuff like this. So to reduce the risk, what I always recommend is that, so the advice from World Athletics, so IAAF, is that once you eat a balanced diet, there's no need to take a supplement, right? Now, the critical thing is there is a balanced diet. How many of us, and I don't a lot of times, how many of us actually are able to consume a balanced diet with the right amount of proteins, fats, carbohydrates, minerals, vitamins, etc.? If you're unable to do that, then there is a role for supplementation. Now, if you're going to have to use a supplement, what I recommend is that, one, because the market is not regulated by the FDA, it's not a strict, doesn't come follow a strict regulation, you have to, it's wisest to stick with a company or a manufacturer who has something to lose, who has a lot to lose. The reason why the supplement market is the way it is because the minute something comes up and there's a class action case against a supplement producer, they just declare bankruptcy and they just drop out. And then another one comes to take their place. So if you're going to take a supplement of what form, make sure it is done by a manufacturer who has something to lose. So like the large companies, so like I think it's Pfizer that makes Centrum, Centrum vitamins and so forth. And I think Bayer makes Pharmaton and stuff like that. So drug companies who produce supplements, they have a lot to lose. So they have a responsibility to ensure that, one second.
Okay, so this program is presented to you by Ruseas Brosis Inc., Unity is Strength. And I just want to take time to give a shout out to the IT team, Norwin and Carleen, and the public relation team that is led by Andel Green for all their outstanding work in the background. And I want to tell you guys that this program is so interesting that we're going to try and see if we can get Dr. Kevin Jones back to have a part 2 to this program, because there's a lot of information that are yet to be covered. Are you back with us, Dr. Jones?
Yes, I will have to let somebody in shortly, so I'll rather have to step for those 2 minutes in a second. But
so Dr. Jones, but so that we do not leave anything uncovered,
yes,
I want you to kind of explain to the viewing audience, as the chairman of your department, what exactly do you do in your department at JADCO?
All right. So I'm the chairman of the Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee. And what we do is that, so we are a panel of specialists who educate cases for athletes to use prohibitive substances for a diagnosed medical condition. So if somebody has, so a drug like insulin, which is banned in sport, if a diabetic who wants to participate in sport, they would have to apply to JADCO, and they would put the case on towards the Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee, and we would review their medical evidence and so forth to confirm that they are indeed diabetic, and two, that the insulin, they are actually justified to use insulin within a certain dosage for them to function and to function normally, and not in a dosage that would give them an unfair advantage. So that's what we do. So and if somebody is asthmatic, we grant permission for them to use certain drugs like prednisone, which is a steroid used to fight inflammation in asthma. We'll give them permission to use it when in competition. We give them permission to use the prohibitive drug in competition, provided that they have adequate medical information, documented medical information, which include laboratory tests, information from their treating physician, to give us the information that we would need to give them the permission to use the drug in competition. So that's pretty much what we do in a nutshell.
Yeah, I was surprised when I was going over my recurrent research. I was surprised.
One second. Give it 2 minutes. Mm-hmm.
So for the group, for the listening audience, some of the issues that we were discussing, that performance enhancing substances is prevalent in adolescents, and these substances are used in an attempt to induce physical performance. And of course, for most of us who do not know, it is also used to enhance appearance. Like I was saying with the doc earlier on, boys are at a higher risk than girls when it comes to use of PED. And because most of these guys are using it not only, like I said before, not only to enhance their performance, but also body shaping. And like the doc said earlier on, let's review some of the most commonly used performance enhancing drugs: creatine, protein supplements, and caffeine again, because a lot of us nowadays, that when it comes to what we would consider to be some power up for the day, some people are taking Red Bull and some of those things in order to power up, and it's not really a good thing to do, because you generate energy when you consume that substance, but then later on during the day you're going to crash for sure. And one of the issues, like we mentioned earlier on, that is causing such a big problem in the United States of America, for instance, is the fact that FDA doesn't have a really good oversight of some of these supplements that are sold over the counter. So then that presents a huge issue. I was doing some research, and when the doc get back, I'm going to ask him to comment on this. What is very much amazing and what was surprising to me is that performance enhancing drugs go back to ancient times. It is said in the research that back in the days, there are some warriors who used to use hallucinogenic mushroom before going to battle, as a stimulant. Doc, I was just explaining to the audience that the history of performance drugs go way back to ancient days. I was reading in a research where it said that warriors were using hallucinogenic mushrooms as a way of stimulating themselves to go to war before they go to war. As also that ancient Olympians were consuming the testicles of sheep.
Yes,
to get the testosterone. So can you explain to us a little bit of the history of performance enhancing drugs?
A little bit. All right, that's a bit deep, but you said a lot, but it's nothing new. That I always say there's nothing new under the face of the sun, you know. So I mean I can't. I mean, apart from eating certain body parts of certain animals to try and increase like testosterone levels and so forth, people, I mean, taking iron, eating foods. I mean, it does go back to just body parts, but certain foods, you know, that are rich in iron. People used to try and eat as much of it as possible to improve their blood levels and so forth. Apart from that, nothing much else comes to mind, you know, but it has been a progression of things over time where individuals found different things, usually started off with natural stuff that helped them improve their performances. And then then it wasn't as scientific in terms of isolating the drug, but we knew that certain foods would create certain sensations or allow you to improve your performances in certain areas, you know, and as a result of that, and it's still present today where, you know, people have all of these roots, baba roots, black star, and all of these things, which are natural substances are being marketed to improve performances in different areas.
Yeah, it was also comical because I noticed also that they said that certain athletes used to eat the hind leg of certain animal as stimulant also. You know, that was, but okay. So Doc, I want you to address a big area for us. So we have covered a lot of stuff regarding performance enhancing substances and so forth. But can you outline for us some of the permanent damage that some of these drugs might cause, and some of the damages, and also the fact that some of these drugs might cause an increase in the rate of certain diseases, terminal diseases? Can you explain for us in detail some of these permanent damage that can be done as a result of the usage of performance enhancing substances?
All right, well, most chemical products in the body are broken down by the liver, you know, and you've heard this, I'm sure you've heard this before. So if you ingest high levels of certain drugs, it can increase the rate of liver damage, and that's in particular with anabolic steroids, and then that can actually predispose to developing liver cancer, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with Lyle Alzado. He was a linebacker, I think he was, that played for the Los Angeles Raiders back in the day, back in the 70s. And Alzado played to the 80s, 70s, and I think early 80s, but he was one of those individuals who end up with liver problems that and eventually needed a liver transplant and eventually died. And that was supposedly attributed to his use of anabolic steroids. So one of the main worries and concerns is liver damage. You know, the liver is an organ that can repair itself, and you really only need a third of a liver to survive. So like people donate livers, they usually cut it up in three and divide it among three different patients, you know. So that is probably the most critical area that can be damaged. The other thing is that certain anabolic agents and so forth increase the risk for cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease in particular, which can increase the risk of heart attacks and stroke. And then apart from that, for when you take drugs that are produced in the body, the tendency is for them to block natural production, and so they block the natural stimulation of the organs that produce these drugs. And as a result, the drugs that where they are produced will tend to atrophy, will tend to get reduced function and get smaller. And that is one of the reasons why anabolic steroid use leads to testicular atrophy and infertility, because you're blocking the natural stimulation of the testicles to produce testosterone, and as a result of that, they pretty much shrivel up. And apart from there, it would affect other organs that are stimulated to produce substances, so like the adrenal glands. There's a part of it that produces steroids. It can result in reduction of their atrophy of these organs as well, and as a result, problems if you stop taking the substance. You can have kidney problems, you end up with kidney failure as well. Certain drugs are toxic to certain areas like the brain and etc. So there's several things, several organs that can be damaged by taking performance enhancing drugs. I said the liver mainly from the breakdown and the breakdown products that are produced by it, and other drugs from direct toxicity and so forth.
So with the liver being such a vital organ in the body, I'm taking that if you have any trace of any form of cancer by taking these kind of drugs, it can actually cause an acceleration in the growth of certain cancers, right?
Yes, it could. Certain drugs are hormone dependent. So like prostate cancer is testosterone sensitive. It's a big hormone thing. So if you take anabolic agents, it does increase the risk of prostate cancer. And if you have it, it will increase the risk of it spreading.
And I noticed that while I was going through also, it mentioned that it can cause depression, but I'm also thinking that when I read that, I'm thinking that, well, wait a minute, no, because of this COVID epidemic, some people might resort to taking performance enhancing drugs also to reduce depression.
It's when stimulants do reduce your whole melancholic state. So stimulants are used to treat depression, So yes, it could increase people's use of stimulants from being locked up and away from persons for an extended period of time.
What about some level of dependence also? Dependence on these substances.
Right. Well, I was telling you that so dependence has twofold. It has a chemical component where it's a substance that the body either produces naturally. So there are receptors in the body for the substances. And that happens a lot with like the morphine-related drugs, cocaine, codeine drugs, morphine, etc., fentanyl, stuff like that, that are not what called narcotic analgesics. There are receptors in the body for it. So when you bombard it with these performance-enhancing drugs and reduce the body's natural production of it, when you stop taking them, there's a chemical dependence of your body. Your body needs them still. It needs something to stimulate those receptors. And that's why, like heroin addicts, part of the big push in treatment for heroin addiction is to give drugs that actually stimulate these same receptors as the heroin, So there's a chemical dependence that comes with taking performance-enhancing drugs and then stopping. And then there's the psychological dependence where you get that the fact of taking the drugs, doing well and getting that positive affirmation from your success. When that starts to fall off, you feel you need to take more to achieve the same level of success, to get the same kind of mental stimulation and mental confirmation of your performance.
Doc, I'm thinking about, I can't name athletes as such, but I know there are athletes here in America that I was talking to some of my colleagues, and what I noticed is that I'm not a clinician, but yet you can almost look at certain individuals and see see signs that this individual might be taking some form of performance enhancing drug. As a clinician, looking from without doing any kind of medical examination. Is it possible from just your experience to be able to look at somebody, just maybe by the person aggression and so forth, and maybe think that it's a possibility this individual might be using performance enhancing drugs? The second part of my question is that some of these guys who have been accused and have been served a certain amount of years banned from the sport, would there be a trace of that particular substance still in that individual body?
All right, so to take your first question, all right, so by looking at that, so that is to deal with looking at somebody and observing certain things to see if it would be a suggestion that they might be on performance enhancing drug. And yes, you are correct. Aggression is one of those things, especially if you see a change in level of aggression. So somebody reacting overly aggressive to a situation. So it's like normally you walk in and somebody brushes past and it's apologizes, all right. And then you walk in and somebody brushes past somebody and then they jump on the person, they're in their face and they're ready to fight and so forth. I think from something that you would consider to be trivial. So a sign of increased aggression is one sign of taking certain types of performance enhancing drugs. Other ones are, well, physically changing their musculature, especially in the female athlete, where muscle definition is harder to come by based on their testosterone receptors and so forth. So changing, reduction in body fat and increased muscle tone and bulk are also, well, and in an unreasonable period of time. So there's a timeline that you could develop it over a 3-6 month period, but if it seems that if the timeline is significantly shorter than what would be expected for a normal individual, that is a sign. Another sign is a recovery time. You find someone is recovering from injury, or if they're recovering from injury.
Hang up insider, so you need one insider.
Somebody, what's that?
I think that was from your side, Doc.
Go ahead. I think it should be fine now.
Somebody on an iPhone.
Yeah, it just sneaked in earlier. Go ahead, Stu. I think should be all right now.
Yeah, right. So so you're looking. So if the period of time is also important. That's why they've developed what you call the biological passport in track and field, where they monitor your levels, your blood levels of certain substances over an extended period of time. Also, I guess your weight and other things over a period of time. And if there is a significant change in that profile, a dramatic change, that's a red flag that you're on performance enhancing drugs. There are drugs that cause certain things in the body. So apart from being increasingly agitated, people who have wide eyes, they always look like they're staring, or their eyes are wide open, like they're this expression of surprise. Some people have it naturally, like Bernie Mac has it naturally. As well, people who have that kind of appearance is a sign that they might be on certain performance enhancing drugs. But the critical thing I say always is not just the appearance sometimes, but also the changes that will take place between at any point in time.
Can I butt in here?
Sure.
Right. I'm sorry. Apologies. I had a major power cut on my side.
Oh.
Yeah, it was horrible. Apart from some major accidents. But I don't know if you have already answered that question. I don't know in terms of therapeutic use exemption. What are some of the medical conditions that exist that could, allow for that therapeutic use?
All right. Well, the main ones that we get are for people with respiratory illnesses. Mm-hmm. Right? Respiratory illnesses on inhalers that can act as stimulants. The thing though is that most of those in the commonly used inhalers like Ventolin, which is salbutamol, and other longer acting ones like salmeterol and so forth, are no longer on the prohibited list. But levels, so there are certain levels in your blood or in your urine that if it's above a certain level, it's considered a positive test. But it just being present is not a positive test like it used to be, like what Kate Linford Christie back in, was it 1996, you know? So so respiratory illnesses are probably the most common one that we get.
Okay.
Other ones we get for our like diabetes to be common as well, because diabetic agents are anabolic, right? Because insulin increases the body's ability to use proteins, carbohydrates, and fats, and so forth. So those would be the two most common conditions in which people apply for therapeutic exemption. But they also have patients who have psychiatric disorders that require some level of some drug, which is either stimulant for depression, or patients who have attention deficit disorders where they give them certain drugs which are also prohibited in sports. That's one of the things that Gatlin was had issues with in early part, and he was supposedly diagnosed with attention deficit disorder. So those are less those we don't get as common, but those will be ones. So diabetics, asthma, respiratory illnesses, and psychiatric illnesses in which you have to take drugs that are on the prohibited list. Well, that's one of the most common.
I hear that they're easing up now on the use of marijuana. What's the status of that?
It is so they have relaxed it in certain sports. So you
that's interesting.
It's still not allowed though in sports where like archery and so forth, where its use creates that carb that you might eat. But there is a relaxation in track. So it's no longer prohibited in competition in no, it's prohibited in competition, but not out of competition in track and field. I'm trying to remember. I can't remember exactly, but there is a relaxation on marijuana use in sports now.
Because of its sedative effect, mostly.
There is a hallucinogenic effect as well, which can make you feel that you're a Superman and get agitated. It depends on how much THC is in it and so forth. Right. So it's not so much the marijuana, but the CBD oil, that's what. So that is for pain and so forth. There's certain leeway to allow the use of that.
Because right now the medical fraternity has endorsed the marijuana as a kind of what you call it. You can actually get prescribed prescription for that.
Always they do for things like nausea, for pain management, and especially in cancer patients and nausea and so forth. It's one of the things that the only thing that works on. And actually in PTSD as well, veterans, especially in the VA in the US, they will vouch for the effects of marijuana, the benefits of marijuana use to help them to control their post-traumatic stress disorders. Nothing else works. All kind of chemicals, man-made stuff don't work, but marijuana works. But
there's this talk. I don't know if you already mentioned this, but there's some myths surrounding the use of performance-enhancing substances. People feel that once you pop a pill, then you go to bed and wake up overnight and have big muscles like Popeye.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that you still have to work hard. You still have to train. So in order to get the thing. I mean, it enhances whatever you're doing, but you're not going to sit down on your butt and grow nice muscles overnight.
That's exactly it. You don't build the muscle without stimulating them.
You're right.
If you're not stimulating a muscle, it's not going to develop. You know? So it's exactly like it's in the name. Performance enhances. It enhances. You have to perform for it to enhance. You know? If you're and that's why there are actually certain, not just criteria, but cycles in which people use them. So you don't just take it at certain points in time. So like I said, for the legal performance enhancers of like creatine, you really only recommend to use it within like power, not during endurance training times, but during power training times. So when you're doing your weightlifting and you're trying to get new strength levels and so on, I think that's the time you use it. You know, not when you're trying to get great distances of endurance and so on, I think, because it can cause cramping and so forth. You know, so you can't just take it and just wake up overnight. You have to take it and train hard, but just that it facilitates you training harder and the ease
recovery
of
and perhaps recovery,
muscle mass, recovery better and so on things. So it enhances all aspects of your training and your performance. Well, what training is performing, but that's not competition.
All right, good. Ken, I don't know if you had asked Dr. Jones regarding the use of these substances with the youth population, and how popular that was.
We did that.
Okay, great. I'm sorry I missed that.
But Doc, I have a question. You know, I'm in Jamaica every year for Boys and Girls Championship, and it never ceased to amaze me the high level of performance among our high school athletes. Now, is there any concern when it comes to the high level performance when by JEDCO? Is there any major concern whereby they're policing the high school sports a little bit more or not?
All right, well, there's been talk about it. You know, there's been talk about like testing at champs and so forth, but it is not, it currently does not exist. The only times junior athletes get tested is when they participate at national events like junior trials, because they're going to know in represent the country at a national level. So all athletes who make teams usually get tested at the national junior trials. Right? But so there has been talk about it at champs. And it's been a big thing in the States as well in terms of testing junior athletes. But there's a lot of legal ramifications because the athletes can't consent themselves. Most of them are underage of consent. It involves parental consent and so forth. And it can have significant consequences on the athlete down the road. So let's talk about it. There are a couple of athletes, high school athletes, who tested positive for certain substances at the national junior trials, you know, and ended up, well, most times when that happens, they usually end up charging the person responsible for the athlete.
Absolutely.
They're not responsible for what they can't consent, you know, and they have to get permission to take whatever. So usually they go after the person around the junior athlete, and the junior athlete gets away with some kind of a warning or something because legally they're not responsible. So there's a lot of issues with that. So there's been talk about testing at champs, but there's been a lot of resistance to doing it. Back to the whole supplement things, the athletes that had tested positive was blamed on a supplement which was available in a popular pharmacy in the Ligonier area, you know, which was found to have certain prohibited substances which were not on the label, and that is why they warned World Athletics warns strongly against taking supplements and the care you have to take when taking them, because a lot of times there's unlabeled substances in it which are prohibited, and then you get in trouble.
And even over the counter.
Right. But all those are over the counter. All those supplements are over the counter because they're not regulated.
All right, well, that's great. Ken, I think, are we at the end of our program or what? Where are we, Ken?
Yes, we are. And, you know, man, this was so interesting. Dr. Jones, we have to find a way to bring you back to this program.
Yeah, we have to find a way to bring you back. I'm sorry I missed out a chunk of this point.
This is so interesting. I'm sure we can find a lot more to discuss on this topic. So we want to say much thanks to you for taking time off from your busy schedule to come and help us on our show. John, do you have anything you want to say?
Let me just, can I read in a question here from one of our listeners? And I just want to throw it in before we close, because we have not been actually entertaining a lot of the questions. A lot of questions coming in, but we have a little technical issue. It says, Dr. Jones, as part of a governing body, what criteria do you use to determine the level of disciplinary action to be taken when one is found to be using performance-enhancing substances? Yeah, so that's coming from Troy, Malcolm, somewhere in the world.
All right, Troy. Well, all right. So I am not directly involved in adjudicated penalties for substance abuse. I'm not involved in that directly. I might advise, they might send information to me and ask me to give a medical opinion on that. Does this make sense? This person said that they did X, Y, and Z and they were given this. Does this make sense? And I would say, based on the current medical practices, the use of this drug in this situation is not recommended. And there's a footballer, a Jamaican footballer, I will call his name, but who got banned a couple of years ago, a 4-year suspension. The doctor got suspended as well as also for using a prohibited drug that was really not designed for the condition that he was treating the athlete for. Because when that whole scandal came out, there was a member of the medical fraternity who was suggesting that it could have all gone away if he had applied for a therapeutic use exemption. That it would not have, because it did not meet the criteria to be granted, because the drug that was given for the condition is not a drug that is seen in the medical world as being applicable to that that condition. And other things, so determine the criteria for how long somebody gets suspended. It depends on the drug, right? So anabolic steroids and diuretics are going to tend to give you the maximum suspensions, which are 2 to 4 years, because they have been proved to give most benefit. Things like stimulants and other lesser enhancing drugs, depending on the athlete, the circumstances involved, if they have a history of any previous issue before, it can range from either a warning, depending on right, or a minimal suspension. We've had several of our top athletes who have received 3 months, 6 months, but suspensions for using certain stimulants, and their stories were variable accordingly. So it depends.
Let's quickly another one quickly here. Quickly.
John,
it says it is rumored that coaches are distributing performance-enhancing substances to their young wards. Is there any truth about this, or any tests being done locally? I think you kind of touched on that already, though.
Yeah. Well, the truth, there are rumors. As I said, there are rumors, but those that we've had a couple of positive tests in junior athletes, which would suggest that there would be some truth to it. We know a lot of coaches, in fact, give supplements, which that may have banned substances in them.
Right.
A lot of coaches like to use supplements. A lot of schools in other programs, whether the substance be vitamins or whatever. A lot of our local football programs and so forth but it's considered to be part of the nutritional program. So the critical thing there is to make sure that those vitamin or whatever it is that they use has the highest possibility of being safe. And I'd mentioned what things you look for to ensure that they're relatively safe.
Yeah. And the last one now is there the truth that women, that if women are exposed to these performance enhancing substances, that they will end up looking like man?
All right, so again, it depends on the performance enhancing drug, right? So anabolic agents, so women who use anabolic steroids will reduce their body fat levels and increase muscle mass. So and have more android features, so looking more manly. So yes, they look more like
man-like
because they develop more masculine properties, low body fat, and increased lean muscle mass, which is one of the main physical differences between male and female. Because classically, women carry about between 5% more body fat than men do. And that's normal. So that is that's a hospital.
So I want to thank Milton Jarrett for sending in that question. Thanks to Troy and thanks to Anita for sending in questions from across the globe. Last words, Ken. Should I just thank Dr. Jones?
Just to add to his answer that Troy asked, the question that Troy asked. So we're looking at the fact that the JADCO, which is Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, would be responsible for the penalties, right, Doc? But
Yes.
you're just in an advising role.
I advise if they ask me, I can advise them on the medical circumstances surrounding the situation. So sometimes you will get a story, like with some of the medications, you'll get they're taking this for that. So I am there, I can say, well, based on the current best practices by the profession, this drug is used in that situation. So they know they might have to try and work out them getting a retroactive therapeutic use exemption for the drug or something like that. And then in certain circumstances as well, like the athlete might have done this treatment from here and then gone there. Certain things in the timeline and so forth they might ask me to comment on, you know. But and this is not direct with the panel, but just the individuals who are arguing the case. But there are members from JADCO appointed persons who will hear the case and then adjudicate on the level of sanctions that should be brought down on the individual, based usually on what is recommended from WADA or World Athletics, or whichever the sport is that is involved.
I agree.
Usually guidelines coming from above, and you can decide whether you're going to go for the maximum or the minimal or whatever, or you're going to let the person off.
Doc, once again, we want to say thanks to you for lending to us today your expertise in the area of discussion. And for our listening audience, next week, we're going to try to discuss PPE from the sports point of view, not the PPE that you guys are accustomed to as a result of COVID. We're talking about pre-season physical examination. What do you call it in Jamaica, John? What's the term for the acronym in Jamaica?
Same basic thing.
Yes,
Okay.
Participation evaluation.
Evaluation, yeah.
Okay, and then we're going to have a guest who is going to be a nurse practitioner who would be an expert in doing physical examination. Doc, we look forward to seeing you again on a very short notice. So expect that we're going to be calling on you to come in and lend us your expertise on another of our shows, because we really enjoy this show. And I know I'm going to be speaking for our listening audience that a lot of us have gained a lot of insight on this area.
And let me just add my own little best wishes to Kevin Jones, consultant orthopedic surgeon, associate lecturer at UWI, president of the Jamaica Sports Medicine Association, and certainly chairman of the the therapeutic use exemption arm of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. Thank you so much, sir, for sitting in with us.
All right, John, you're welcome. Well, thanks for having me. I enjoy sharing the knowledge as long as it helps to enhance the knowledge base wherever.
You're a true teacher, man. We know that.
All right, bye.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jones.